Beautiful. Save.
Put the switch when you get a moment.
Does this work? If I plug into this, will I get sound?
Yes, that one works too.
Beautiful. Somebody's sneezing.
Right. You should be able to get sound.
All right. Boom, 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 boom.
And you can go whenever you're ready.
Beautiful. All right, check, test. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Aaron Ladd joining you here for another episode of ANF Sports Tonight here on our channels. Let's throw this up really quick. Another solo mission here for me. Wasn't on the show last week. I was feeling a little left out. I was watching Connor and Bailey and Ellie and everybody frolic around and have a good time talking about the sports here. What a busy sports week it was. What a busy sports weekend it was. Really jam-packed show for you here on Monday, October 14th, 2024. Of course, we're going to talk about those Atlanta Falcons, 4-2 after that win over the division rival Carolina Panthers, what it means for them now, what it means for them going forward. As now things start to get interesting in this division, they're 4-2. Tampa's 4-2, and it seems like they have one of the best offenses in all of the entire sport. And suddenly the Saints have lost 4 in a row after a 2-0 start, so we'll talk about the Atlanta Falcons, of course, as they start a 3-game winning streak. The Georgia Bulldogs and Kirby Smart preparing for one of the toughest games on the entire college football slate. They're traveling to Austin, take on the Texas Longhorns. That'll be a very interesting matchup. Want to hear from them and see what the Bulldogs are thinking, because it hasn't been pretty. It has not been pretty at all times for UGA. I had my first trip to Sanford Stadium as a professional member of the media here, of course. So we'll talk about that and talk about that monster matchup between number 5 and number 1 in college football. Tech, what a win it was for them against the Tar Heels in North Carolina. We'll talk about Jamal Haynes, and you'll hear from him, the ACC running back of the week. We got some sound from him queued up here. ANF Sports Tonight. And then the Hawks will play preseason game number 2 here in about an hour. Zachary Reese-Hache, the number 1 overall pick, dazzled in game number 1. We'll see what he can offer for game number 2. And we'll talk a little Vince Carter as he goes into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame here in 2024. It is October 14th, 2024. Appreciate you being with us. Wouldn't have a show without you all. If you got something for us, type it in the chat. I'll try and get to it wherever you're watching. Let us know. Chime in here as we go through what is really going to be a very, 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 very busy week in Atlanta sports. We'll start with it here on the screen. Atlanta Falcons 4-2. Who saw that coming? Be honest. Who amongst us had Raheem Morris and these Atlanta Falcons at 4-2 after the first 6, because that was not a very popular take 6 weeks ago. I want to give Raheem Morris credit, because obviously there was talent on this roster. It wasn't like he was walking into a team that didn't have talent. I don't think anybody argued that they're talentless. And Drake London, Bijan Robinson. You think about a piece that came over this offseason that we never really got to see in the offense, and Rondale Moore. Defensively, they've got guys. Jesse Bates, you've got Justin Simmons, Matthew Judon comes over as a late addition. They had talent. But I think something that we saw from this Falcons team in years past is the lack of the ability to finish. This team, through the first 5 weeks, not including this one, it was playing one-score games. They were playing one-score games. The games were decided in the fourth quarter or later, when you're the most tired, when you're the most worn out, when you're possibly have a nagging injury, when you're possibly searching for how deep you can dig to try and continue and win this game, Raheem Morris to me has instilled winning confidence in this team. And they believe going into fourth quarters that they're the better team. They're the team that's going to execute better down the stretch. They're the team that has the better quarterback 9 times out of 10, certainly in this matchup. And I really think the last 2 matchups, even though Baker Mayfield has played well this year. Kirk threw for 509 in that game. 38-20 the final here for Atlanta. We'll read a couple stat lines here because it was really the running game for Atlanta. They get 198 yards on the box sheet, but that's a little misleading because the kneel downs. They finished with over 200 yards rushing in this game. Bijan Robinson, the first 2 rushing touchdown game of his career. Tyler Algier scores the first touchdown of his 2024 season. They combine for those 200 yards. Kirk Cousins connects with Drake London, who was his favorite receiver in this one. We've talked about Darnell Mooney on this program before and what he brings, but it was the Drake London game in this one. And it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect. We're talking Falcons here on ANF Sports Tonight. Let me get my little top bug up here, top tab. As the Falcons improve to 4-2 for the first time since 2016. It wasn't perfect. There was a fumble. There was the first drive offensively. They went 3 and out, so it wasn't perfect. We saw some of this adversity that they've had to overcome in other games, but in this one specifically, they found a way. And then leaned on the run game down the stretch. Kirk talked about last week him being able to be on the same page with his receivers again. Him finding guys and anticipating where they would be. Another good game from Kyle Pitts in this one. 5 targets, 3 catches, 70 yards. I believe it was his first time going back-to-back 50-yard receiving yard games since his rookie year. So obviously he's starting to find a stretch. And I know there was a play that a lot of people were not happy about in the fourth quarter with Kyle Pitts. I saw former Falcons Todd McClure and Harry Douglas chime in on that. He's having to recalibrate and reacclimate. We actually heard from him in the team facility on Friday. And he's a quiet, soft-spoken guy. Doesn't really say much, but you can tell they're working on mentality. Back to what we started this all off with, and now round it out with mentality talk when it comes to the Falcons. Next 2 games, Seattle and Tampa Bay. Seattle at home, Tampa Bay on the road. You just saw them. Seattle's a team that started out hot, kind of like New Orleans, came back to the pack. This is when we start to see that mentality that Raheem Morris has talked about. Can this team go from 4-2 to 5-2? Keep stacking the W's? Can they continue to show consistency in all 3 phases? That's going to be the difference. They had a block punt in this game. Special teams makes a difference. Special teams matters is something I post on social media a lot for those who are new to following me. I want to see if we can see the Falcons continue to push the mentality after this 38-20 win over Carolina. ANF Sports Tonight for October 14th, 2024. Let's talk some Georgia Bulldogs now. Let's talk some Georgia Bulldogs now because we know this is dog country. We know this is dog nation. We know Georgia is what a lot of people are tapped in on and what people care about in this market, a team that has a chance to compete for a national title every single year. I want to start personally with my first trip to Sanford Stadium, though. I have a lot of friends who went to UGA. I talked about this briefly before, but grew up in the Georgia area, went to Mizzou, still SEC, shout us out, coming back from the Texas A&M loss, don't count us out just yet. But I had a lot of friends that went to UGA, grew up around the team, grew up around the sport, and talk about the atmosphere there. There's been a lot of talk about atmosphere this year when it comes to UGA. My first press conference with Kirby Smart, he's pressing and pushing on the fans to show up and be loud and be consistent and root for the team for all 4 quarters. I saw both sides of the coin in this one, be honest. This was a 4-15 kick against Mississippi State, a team that had one win, was riding a 4-game losing streak into this one. So you wonder if their fans are really going to be bought in, or Georgia fans really going to be bought in because they're playing a lackluster opponent. What's the atmosphere going to be like? That's what I was curious about going into this one. My first game at Sanford Stadium. As I pull up the stat sheet here, Georgia and Mississippi State. This game was a lot closer than the stat sheet will show you. This game was a lot closer than the stat sheet will show you, because I think a lot of Georgia fans hope and pray eventually that they're going to get an easy victory at some point in time. That they're going to get to games where they can just play their best football, start fast, execute, avoid turnovers, avoid penalties, and beat some of these lesser opponents from the jump. Not give them an opportunity to feel like they're still in the game. That's not what happened here. Very first offensive drive for Georgia, Carson Beck is intercepted. Finished the day with 2 interceptions, but also one of the best, it was the best statistical passing game of his career. 36 completions, 459 passing yards, 3 scores, but the 2 interceptions. Georgia puts up 605 yards of total offense in this one. But the second half, the penalties, the turnovers, Mississippi State had 10 points off turnovers in this one. Second half, from the third quarter on, Mississippi State holds on. They score 21 to Georgia's 14. It's not their standard. It's enough to get the job done against the Mississippi State, but as we turn the page to this next game against the top team in college football, the Texas Longhorns, in their place, a healthy Quinn Ewers now, who a lot of people think is the best quarterback in college football. You can't have some of this. You can't play your C-minus game. You can't roll out of bed, do your homework on the bus on the way to class against Texas and think that it's going to be rewarded and think that you're going to be able to hang in there. And I think that's a lot of the worry that I've heard from Georgia fans and even the players themselves. We're talking about Malachi Starks after the game, defensive back, and he said, something's got to change. It's not just him, all phases. Even Trevor Etienne from the podium today in Athens saying Georgia still hasn't played a complete game. I think that's one of those things in sports where maybe we kind of mythologize it. There is no such thing as a perfect game, especially coaches will tell you that all the time, that they would nitpick everything that happens no matter what. But I think Georgia knows deep down, from the Kentucky game into the Alabama game, which now, with so much context on that, how that looks, I think they know that the best is still yet to be played. And, hey, maybe it comes this Saturday. What kind of confidence builder would that be for Kirby Smart's bunch here on ANF Sports Tonight as we look ahead to UGA versus Texas and also talk Georgia versus Mississippi State? What kind of confidence builder would that be if they say, you know what, we haven't played our best game this week. We haven't played our best game yet this season, but we're going to have a great week of practice. And maybe we could figure something out in Texas. Maybe that's exactly the missing piece that's needed for this team, this offense, this defense, to say, you know what, we can do it this year. This is how we win games. This is our identity. I do see a lot of that still. A lot of that. Not in games against Mississippi State. Ignore that. Ignore that. The 459 from Carson Beck, whatever. I'm taking that with a grain of salt. I'm looking at. I'm going to learn way more about them this Saturday than I did last Saturday. That's just point blank. Period. Especially if they want to consider themselves a team that's going to be playing in this national championship game in the college football playoff. That's going to be here in Atlanta in 2025. Do something against Texas. Figure something out against Texas. Play a clean game against Texas. Heck, that would even encourage me. I'm not saying you got to go out there and blow them out. You got to go out there and hang toe-to-toe, have a shootout with them. It's none of that. Play a clean game. Georgia had 5 penalties for 54 yards in this one with the 2 turnovers. Play a clean game. Give me 0 turnovers and less than 5 penalties and see where that puts you. Play against yourself. Don't play against the Texas Longhorns. Play the best game you can play and see what happens. Because I think that puts them in a very good situation. It gives them an opportunity to say, you can't eat an elephant in one bite. Let's break it down. Let's start with a smaller goal that we can control, and then you move on from there. But it's going to be a tough test. I'm about to look up this line really quick between Texas and Georgia. I know Texas is favored, being the home team, number 1 team in the country with one of the best quarterbacks in the sport. But I wonder, I see 3.5 here, not sure who has that. That sounds about right. That sounds about right. Over under set at 55. For all our friends that are on the apps out there, let me know what y'all are feeling, which way y'all are going on that Texas UGA line as we talk Bulldogs and Longhorns here on ANF Sports Tonight. We did Falcons, we did UGA. You know what's next. Story number 3. Story number 3, story number 3, story number 3, story number 3, story number 3. Man. Let's get our little top box up here as we preview a big matchup also at the Benz. This one's also at the Benz. Of course, the upcoming college football playoff national championship game in 2025 is at the Benz, but much sooner, and implications here locally, Georgia Tech and Notre Dame being played at Mercedes-Benz on Saturday. That's a big one. Tech's played better as of late, and who could forget this 68-yard scamper for Jamal Haynes. I mean, he's been a do-it-all guy this year for the Yellow Jackets. He had a career-high rushing in this game, 170 rushing yards. The game-winning touchdown with 14 seconds left. I mentioned I was at UGA this weekend. It was so fun watching the whole press room, the whole media workroom react to the last few minutes of Alabama versus South Carolina. I'll let you guess who most people were rooting for there. And then react to the final moments of UNC versus Georgia Tech. I'll let you guess who people were rooting for there in Athens. But Tuck comes out on top. The news today here on Monday as we tape this and stream this and go live here is that Jamal Haynes named ACC Running Back of the Week, which is really cool. Obviously very well deserved. Had a great game against Duke. The reason that they won here against UNC. Let's hear from him really quickly because I thought he had some good sound post-game. This sound is from Georgia Tech Athletics. Let's hear from him. We'll dip in for a little bit of this press conference to hear what he had to say about the last-second thrilling win over the North Carolina Tar Heels.
We'll go ahead and get started. On everybody's left, we have Jamal Haynes. On everybody's right, we have Weston Franklin. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Jamal, you said earlier this week you had something special planned for today. Was this what you had in mind?
I had a win in mind. Anything to get the job done. That was pretty much it. That's pretty much was the goal, the mission. Came here and got it done.
Kelly?
What went through your mind on the last play when you saw the hole to run through? And I'm sure you were probably just thinking, get a first down, get as much as I can, and clock it, call time out. But what went through your whole head when you saw the Ed's face?
Yeah, definitely. I had a couple of coaches just telling me, bust one. You know, it's coming. Yeah, I've been harping on it all game. Like, just calm down. One's going to come. And, I mean, I really got the ball, and I was really thinking an explosive play, anything that happened. I mean, my left guard, my left tackle, they pulled. One kicked, one wrapped. I just seen daylight and hit it.
Chad?
Weston, I saw you just kind of jog off the field and give Jeep a bump. I mean, it's kind of, you're just tired, not that big of a celebration guy, or?
I mean, I seen Jamal, once he got to the linebacker level, I seen him break it, I knew he was going. So I looked to the sideline, celebrated with my teammates, and seen Jeep. So that was pretty special for us because usually he's in the back. I'm not really celebrating with him. So it was definitely fun. I knew plenty of guys were going down there to celebrate with Jamal. So found him, and so it was pretty cool.
What was the call? Did you know it had the capability of hitting big like that?
I did. I mean, they said we were going to pop one. It just a matter of time before it happens. And so when it went, I was like, there it is, and there we go. So Next one.
Over here.
Just curious your thoughts about the running game as a whole. Obviously, the quarterback and his fair share of yards on the ground as well. Just how impressed were you with that?
I can't really say I'm too impressed. I mean, it's expected. These guys work hard day in and day out, week after week. I mean, we kind of know what it is. We know how our run game can be. We know how dominant we can be in the run game. That's running the ball with the running back or the quarterback. So it's not really an impression. It's really an expectation nowadays. So I'm really proud of these guys. Once again, they come up and show up to work every week. So I can't really ask for too much more.
All right, you heard from Jamal Haynes and Weston, one of his teammates there along the offensive line, talking about that win over North Carolina. And you heard him say something poignant there. I thought that was interesting. He said it's not really a surprise that we do this, kind of an expectation. You heard Brent Key say that after the big win over Florida State, or we thought was a big win at that time, in Ireland. This team's going to run the ball. I come on this platform and say time and time again how important it is for teams to find their identity. Tech knows what their identity is, and that could be more valuable than a lot of early season wins. Figuring out what your path is to winning, what your path is to scoring points, to getting on the board. I mean, think about this situation, right? They have under a minute or less to get in field goal range. They already have a firm plan and identity on how they can get there. It just so happened that this situation, it was a 68-yarder. But when you have faith and confidence in one area of the game that you do really well, and you know we're going to continue to do this until the other team can stop it, that's dangerous. And I think that gives them a very good chance this weekend against Notre Dame, a Notre Dame team that has fallen already to inferior opponents. They lost to Northern Illinois at home in what was one of the most stunning upsets of the season so far. So I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever if Georgia Tech at home, put that in air quotes, at home, which, I mean, I don't know. It's home. I wonder what the crowd makeup is going to be. You know, Notre Dame they travel well. They have a lot of fans in a lot of different parts of the country that will show up and show out and say, okay, the Irish are here. Let's pull up to the Benz. Let's see them play. Even though they've kind of disappointed us at times this year, let's pull up and make sure we support the team because we don't get to see them very much. I think this is going to be an interesting one. Let's get the line on Georgia Tech Notre Dame before we move on to the next topic here on ANF Sports Tonight, October 14th, Monday. Appreciate y'all rocking with us, listening with us here on the stream line. I just like looking at what the odds makers have to say because it gives us a little context. A lot of people will say Vegas is always right. There's a reason they're right more often than not. There's a reason why the casinos are so nice in Vegas when you go there. FanDuel Sportsbook has Notre Dame as an 11-point favorite this weekend against Georgia Tech. That's the information that I have here, 11 points. I don't know if that's moved or changed since being published, but that's double digits on the road. I know Notre Dame is ranked. They're ranked number 11 here. They're 5-1. Georgia Tech 5-2. 3:30 kick from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That's a lot of points. It's a lot of points. We just talked about them being a team that loves to run the ball. I don't think they're a team that will shy away from running the ball, even if they're down. You know, you see that a lot too. Teams who are run heavy, they get down double digits earlier, they get down 14, and then they start abandoning their identity. They say, we're going to pass the ball. They get pass happy. I don't see that from this Tech team. I think they know, push comes to shove, they're gonna run the ball. They're gonna run the ball. Let's pull up this box score really quickly before we talk some Hawks and get out of here. Jamal Haynes, 19 carries, 170 yards. Obviously the long 68-yarder to win it, 2 scores. Haynes King, 11 of 22 for 127 yards passing. no touchdowns. Not a great day, but we talked about the identity and what they like to do. We know why that is. And that's because Haynes King on the ground, 11 carries, 107 yards, and 2 scores. Like, if you're Notre Dame, you have one mission this week ahead of this game. You got to slow down the run game. If you can slow down their run game, that's the lifeblood of what they do offensively. All right, story number 5 before we get on out of here. It is Atlanta Hawks basketball. Atlanta Hawks basketball continuing to ramp up here in the city. Preseason game number 2, tipping off in about 30 minutes or so if you're watching this live. Ooh. In about 30 minutes or so if you're watching this live against the 76ers. And what a fun ending it was in the first preseason game. Seth Lundy, who had that one on their bingo card? Game-winning score from Seth Lundy. I don't know how much you can take from preseason NBA basketball, if anything at all. But for the Hawks, it means something. And you know where I'm going with this, because we talked about it a little bit on the intro. The number 1 overall pick, the big Frenchman, Zachary Reese-Sachet. If there's one thing that I take from that 18-point performance in game number 1, and we'll see what he can do in game number 2, it's the length. It's the size. It's the ability to spread the floor, shoot outside, give defenses a different look, have to make them do a double thought, think twice, hesitate for just a little bit. Is he going to shoot? Is he going to put it on the floor? Is he going to pass? Because he's shown us the ability to pass. We all knew that this wasn't a star-studded draft this year. We knew it wasn't a Zion Williamson. We knew it wasn't a Anthony Edwards type draft. We knew it was a role player type draft. But all things considered, I like how Zach looked through one game. That's the key part of that. It's just the one game. I get it. I can hear the groans from the gallery now. Oh, it's just one game. It's a small sample size. Yes, I get that. And that's why we'll see another one tonight. But the ability for him to run alongside Trey, and this is a little weird, but I'm just going to say this now. He looks like a taller Trey. They kind of look alike. I'm getting older. My eyes don't work the same way they used to. I rub them for a little bit, and you squint a little bit, and I'm like, oh, tall Trey Young. Tall Trey Young. We'll see what Zach can bring to the Hawks as preseason game number 1 tips. Here in about 30 minutes, we'll have those highlights tonight on ANF Sports at 11. Finally, what's on my mind? I do have a question from the chat also. Appreciate you chiming in. I think this is Abi. I'll just say Abi. I don't know how to pronounce the whole thing. Hey, what do you think it would take to unlock Bijan? He just had 2 touchdowns. He's being unlocked. And maybe that'll be what's on my mind today. Trust the process. Please. The lower third was the Falcons are 4-2 for the first time since 2016. It's almost been a decade. It's almost been a decade since they started a season with promise and hope and expectations. I mean, people were saying that this was Tampa Bay's division to lose. And here we are. Falcons are 3-0 in the division with a chance to really put some distance if they win these next 2. If you beat Seattle at home and then come back and beat Tampa again on the road to go 7-2 or 6-2, my math is not great, 6-2, you can really put some distance there. So what's on my mind is appreciation. I'm grateful, thankful, because the Falcons are coming. That's the show for today, Monday, October 14th, 2024. Appreciate y'all rocking with us. I believe I will be back tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourself, and we'll see you on the other side.